Python, like all programming languages, supports multiple data types. So you can have integers, you can have floating point numbers called floats, you can have strings, you can have date time data types, and you can have collections. So a list in Python is a collection of elements. Now when you define a list, it does not have rules like ordering. The elements of the list are not sorted by default, but you access the elements via an index. There is no data type check. So a list can contain elements of different data types, even other lists. So a list can contain an integer plus a string plus another list, all of them different elements inside the main list. A list does not enforce uniqueness. You can have duplicate values in a list. So here's a quick demonstration of lists. First I define an empty list. Okay, so my list is empty. If I do a type command against the list, it tells me the type of variable. The variable in my list is actually a list itself. Then I can append a single item to the list, an element. In this case I am appending an integer 1. So once after I append, I do a print of that list. So my list becomes when I run the mylist command, it shows me there's one element and that element is 1 only. I could just, for example, if I want, I could add another element. And then print the list again. So now my list has two elements, 1 and 2. Okay. I can pre-create a list with elements of integer and string data types. So the second list here that I have here has 2, 4, 6 and then a string and then a capital and then a number. So I run this. I have not printed it. If I want to print it, I can just print it. Sorry, let me just print it here. So I print this and you can see my second list contains all these elements. Then I can create a list that is an aggregate of two lists. So for example, I have this first list called my list and I have the second list called my second list. So I define a new list which is a sum of those two lists, my list plus my second list. Let me just define this list and then let me print the list. So my list contains 1, 2, this 1, 2 from the first list, and then appended to it 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, ABC R8, ABC R8. So these first two elements are from this list, and the next set of elements are from the second list. So you can combine two lists together with the plus operator. Remember the list is a collection. When you want to combine two lists, you use the plus operator here. You can, although you have a pre-populated list, you can actually insert an element at a specific position. If I show the append command, it appends at the end of the list. If I want to insert an element in a specific position, for example position number 2, I can run that here and I insert a string at position number 2. Now if you remember, in Python indexing starts from 0. So the 0th element is this digit 1, the first element is this digit 2, and the second element, which was earlier this digit 2, now the second element, because I specified it to be inserted, the second element is new, and this number 2 is now the third element. For example, let me just print that here. Okay, so this is this 2 here. In this example, I combined two lists and the two lists have numbers and strings. You can also have a list which contains another list embedded. So for example, if I have this list called my egg list, I can add that as an element inside another list. This does not become a two-dimensional array. Arrays are different. This just becomes a list which contains one list, a string, and another list. So this is a named list, this is a string, and this is another unnamed list, that was what you would might call an anonymous list, and gets added into this list called my multi-list. So I'll just run the definition and then I will print it, and you can see my multi-list, the first part of that list is 1 2 new 2 4 6 8 ABCR8, that is this my egg list. The second part of this list is single string, and the third part of that list is another list, which is from here. So a list contains another one, a named list, a string, and another list, and each of these lists can contain elements of different data types. Now you access elements of the index of the list via an index. 0 is always the first element. Colon allows you to specify a range of elements, and -1 is the last element. So let me just show you the list again. The first list that I had defined here, my egg list. If I want the 0th element, it becomes this one, right? If I want elements from 0 until the first element before index number 2, from 0 up to but not including index 2, I get 1 and 2, because element 2 is this new. Remember, we inserted new as address index number position 2. So when you specify a range to extract elements of a list, it is bounded to the last value before this number. I can specify a range which starts from element 2 and ends at element 5. When I say 6, it is element 5. So this is 2, 3, 4, 5. We can see that also if I go back. 2, 3, 4, 5. New 2, 4, 6 are the elements here. 2, 3, 4, 5. Starts from index position 2, ends at index position 5. Now -1, as I showed, is the last element. So -2 is the second last element. So if the last element was 8, the second last element is the capital R. And I can specify a range because the colon. So if I say colon -2, I get all the elements which begin from 0, because I now specify the start position, and end at the second last position, second last index. So this is how you can access elements in a list. You specify the index position. 0 is the first position. 2 indexed position 2 means when you specify a range ending in 2, it stops at 0, 1. Okay, so 0 and 1, index 0, index 1. When you specify from 2 to 6, you're specifying start from index 2, that is new, and then add index 5, new 2, 4, 6, that is index 2, index 3, index 4, index 5 here. So you can access elements using the index position, like this or like this, a range of elements. Okay, these are all single dimensional lists. So let me go back to my multi-list. Remember, my multi-list consisted of one list here and then a string and another list. So what is the first element in my multi-list? The first element in my multi-list is itself a list. Okay, this is the old AG list which I had used to define multi-list. So if I have a list which contains another list in the first position, that is index position 0, when I extract 0, I do not get this 1, I get this whole list. If I access the second last element, all elements from the second last up to the end. This is, see, the beginning is second last and end is end. So beginning is single string, second last, and the end is the last element. So let me show you again. My multi-list consists of 3 elements: one list, one string, another list. Index position 0 is this first list. From the second last element to the last element is from this one. to this one. So a string and a list. So whenever it prints out a list embedded in a list, you will see the bracket twice, because this is itself a list. Inside of the list you will see the end of the internal list and the end of the output list. So the output of this list is a list, but it contains a string and a list. Now to build up two more examples, I'll just go back to my ag list again. This is my ag list. What if I were to empty the list? You can use, let me show you again, you use append to add an element to the end of the list. Use insert to insert an element at a specific position in the list. And then you use clear to clear the list. So if I do a clear of the list and then I print, it shows me that this is an empty list. It shows it is a list. For example, if I were to still show it's still a list, but it is an empty list. Now if you remember, when I built my multi-list here, this ag list was an element inside this multi-list. So once I clear the ag list, what happens to my multi-list? So the first element of my multi-list is still a list, but it is an empty list now. If you remember, let me scroll back here. My multi-list contains a list earlier, right here. Then I cleared that list. So now my multi-list, when I print my multi-list, the first element is an empty list. And then the second and third elements of my multi-list are as they were. So you can clear a list but still retain the list as an empty list. It is an empty list. It is an empty list. But clearing a list is different from deleting the list. What happens if I delete a list? After I delete a list, I cannot print the list. So the delete command went through, but printing the list failed because it says it's not defined. It no longer exists. Once you delete a list, it no longer exists. So this is about accessing elements of a list, then deleting elements of a list, and then a quick example of copying elements to a list. So first I build a source list called ABC. Then I build two lists, target list 1 and target list copied. The difference between the two is, for target list I just say target list 1 is the same as source list, and target list copied is a copy of the source list. So when I print target list 1, it shows these values. When I print target list 2, it shows these values. They seem to be the same, but the difference is target list 1 is actually the same as source list, while target list copied is a different copy of the list. So what happens when I clear the source list here? When I clear the source list, if I were to print target list 1, because it was the same as the source list here, it becomes an empty list. But the second target list, that was called target list copied, was created with the copy function. It still exists. So target list copied is distinct from target list 1. Target list copied is distinct from source list. So this is a quick demonstration of building lists, empty lists, appending to a list, pre-creating a multi-element list, combining two lists and printing it, inserting element into a list that contains other lists. So here's a list that contains one named list, one unnamed list, and a string. So a list can contain integers, strings, lists. I didn't run this command, but yeah, you could have done that. You could see that my multi-list is a list here. Then a list can be accessed by the index position 0, which is the first element, or -1 is the last element. You can specify a range of index positions to access. When you say 0 to 2, you mean 0th and 1th. When you specify 2 to 6, you mean 2th, 3rd, 4th and 5th. When you say -2, you mean the second last. And when you say null to -2, means from the first to the second last. You can empty a list with the clear. You can delete a list, and you can copy a list, make a list as the same as the original list, or you can make a list as a physically distinct copy of the original list.